Ethan just walked in, she just get her?
Huh?
Is it Ethan just walked in, she just get her?
Yeah, as you see 65, got a tanker flipped over in a hazmat crew out there. It took me 2 hours to get home from Maryville. I got Jacob mattress.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Now you know why I go to the back room.
Yeah.
We got off because as soon as I seen that, I'm like, oh, it's there, but I know this trick. I can fight my thing and be here for 4 hours in a van with no air. No.
Hey, this car started overheating. Is it doing all right now?
Yeah, because she was just sitting there with when she
It still shouldn't do that one.
checked the antifreeze.
Alrighty. Let's see. Chapter 17. We're on page 128 of your handout. Are there any questions from anything we've gone over previously?
You might have more fun in there. Yeah, you see it on the floor, that's what you do it. You'll have more fun in here.
I think that's what this week, the Lord's kind of been bringing the remnant, in my mindset, the remnant. And, as we read through this, we see that most of the whole population has been, the ones that didn't believe in Christ have been wiped out. So, is the remnant talking about is it before the rapture, or is it talking about after the millennium?
What reference to remnant are you talking about in that?
How God said there'll be a remnant left.
Right.
That believe in me. So I'm just wondering, is that like towards more of the millennial or after the millennial when Jesus comes to kind of purify, cleanse the earth?
Well, there's throughout church history, not even just church history, there has always been a remnant.
Yeah.
In times when there's persecution or destruction comes upon God's people. Look at the early church. I mean, they faced all kinds of stuff. But there was always still that group that remained faithful. If you go all the way back to Elijah's time, and he was complaining, "I'm the only one that hasn't."
Right.
And God said, "No, that's not true. 7,000 or something."
7,000, yeah.
So you're not the only one. I still have some that haven't bent the knee to Baal. But out of how many? We've talked about it many times. At that time, Elijah's time, I have no idea how many Israelites are there then.
Right.
Millions. So for there to be only 7,000 that haven't bent, that's a remnant. So always through, regardless of what's happening, God has always had people. So even now, as we see, pushing out into the tribulation period, it's sad that those people didn't have it going on like they should, because they would have missed all this. They would have been gone in the rapture.
Right.
But many, because of what's happening, realize that, hey, this is real.
Yeah.
And then, and as a result of that, they do turn to God. And many are martyred. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
They were giving up the faith.
Right.
So there's even a remnant during that time.
Well, it talks about those that don't take the mark of the beast, that they're going to be martyred or killed.
Yep.
Because they're not following along with the Antichrist.
Right. And there are going to be some of them that are going to survive. I mean, we know that. It's pretty incredible, but they do. Wouldn't want to have to make it that way. Not when I can just choose now to. It's so much easier to do what you need to do now. We think it's hard now, but this is the easy time.
Yes, Pastor, because I heard so many Bible study or people's, they say that we're going to see the Antichrist before the rapture is over.
Well, we may see him, but we won't realize that it's him.
Yes.
just as with anything else, you're going to get all the debate on everything. The word says that the man of sin, which is the Antichrist, will not be revealed until he who letteth or restrains is taken away. So that's where the debate comes in. Who's the restrainer? I've heard arguments, people wanting to say that it's Michael, the archangel, is the restrainer. Where do you get that from? That's the kind of stuff that I'm getting. Well, we know that the one thing that is restraining, if Satan could, I've said it over and over again, and you know that, if he had the ability to, he wouldn't mess around, he'd just kill every one of us right now.
Yeah.
If he could, well, he can't. Why? Because he's being restrained. Well, who's doing that? It's the power of God, the Holy Spirit. Well, how right now, in the time that we're living in, how does the Holy Spirit operate?
Through us.
Through God's people. So, through the Holy Spirit, the church, the true church, is the restrainer. So, until we're gone, then the man of sin will be revealed. So that's all the speculation of this person or that. Throughout my life, people have done all the numbers thing. Oh, if you do the mathematical part of their name, and it's Hitler, it's Stalin, it's this. I've heard all kinds of people that they've assigned that to. It's just guesswork. They don't, and they're not going to. Do I believe that he's alive and walking the earth right now? I do, because I believe we are that close to the end time. I believe that. But to say absolutely without doubt for sure it's this person, not going to be able to do that. He's not going to be revealed. Even then, okay, think about this. That's not going to be until after the church is raptured. But even then, it's not going to be immediate.
Right.
Because he's going to go into the first part of the tribulation period being this wonderful person.
Peace, like
exactly. Making peace, bringing all of the religious nationalities together and forming a one world religion and economy and all of this stuff. He's going to have all the answers. So he's not gonna show who he is right out of the gate. So even after we're gone, it's going to be a while before he's going to. Once he's got his foothold, that's just what Satan does. Once he gets the people to the place that there's no turning back, then you don't care. Then okay, now here's what I really want. It's too late for you. That's just what he does.
Yeah, it was so funny, and this means nothing to me or anybody else, but probably a year and a half ago, when that French leader, or whatever they call him over there, I don't even know his name. I seen it on TV when he was installed in his office. I'm like, that's the Antichrist. I mean, it was just like, I don't even know what it was about him. I didn't know nothing about it, nothing about him. But when they said he was this guy over in France, and I'm like, that's the Antichrist. I mean, it was just so stupid. But
yeah, it could be. I don't know.
Funny. I mean, it was just out of the way that happened. It's like, so he's been in the news a little bit lately. So
yeah.
I'm like,
They're having all kinds of things going on in France right now, all kinds of riots that are happening, and all kinds of different things that's going on there.
Yeah, that's what happens when the government disarms the people and then tries to impose its will on them. They'll take it to the streets.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I'm like,
I expect it here.
It's coming.
yes.
I expect
It's coming. Yep. Yeah, and the only thing that has stopped them so far from forcefully doing anything they want to do is just that.
What they're doing on this live.
Yeah.
They're controlling us.
Yep.
They're doing it.
Yep, they are.
Your money, IRS, banks, all of it.
Everything. Yep.
Healthcare.
I'm telling you, be as self-sufficient as you can possibly be. All right, verses 6 and 7 in chapter 17. The woman drunken with the blood of saints. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
Admiration?
Yeah. Well,
There's another word.
it's not quite what you think. It's more of an awe of.
How that happened?
Yeah. It says, and the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? So that's what the admiration is. He's
marveling.
I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. All right, this is a lengthy one, and I'll warn you ahead of time. I think he's getting further along, and he's been writing for some time in his thing here, so he somehow thinks I'm guessing, to liven it up or to change it up, and so he starts pulling out all the big vocabulary words he can find. It's like, what? So why'd you just say what that?
Simple,
yeah,
so that everybody can understand, right?
I've said that all along. He just says me.
Well, if you thought that before, you're gonna love this one.
Maybe I better go get it.
The woman not only is depicted as the main source from which all apostate religions have developed, but also is responsible for the most excruciating persecution of the true saints of God. She is actually described as being drunken with the blood of the saints and martyrs of Jesus. This reference regulates the attention more directly to the New Testament era and speaks especially to the persecution of the true church by apostate Christians in its future sense. The history of the Lord's church is a continuous demonstration of persecution invoked by apostates upon those who hold fast to doctrinal and practical principles of the true Christian faith. So here, I'm going to try to simplify it leading into this, where he's going with this. And I understand what he's saying, and I get this too. He's saying a lot of words to try to describe that this woman is not just something that became present in the tribulation period. This has been the apostate church, those that have turned away from the true faith throughout church history. So all the way back to the disciples' time, when the early church began, this woman was present. So the Jews that rejected Christ, and they were God's people, and in their minds, as we talked about before with Paul, he thought he was doing God's work, but he was living a lie. He didn't understand the truth. So they persecuted the church, the true believers, the real Christians that had the right doctrine. So that's what we call the apostate church, those that have turned away. They're still going under the name of religion, and they're the church, but they're not believing the right way. So when that happens, those that do believe right and hold to the truth, they persecute them. Well, it's coming right here now too. And it's when that persecution really begins to unfold. Right now we mostly see that from the world, because they don't want the truth. But when you get those that were part of the church and got away from the truth or never held the truth, they're going to be in conflict. There's no way around it. When they're confronted with the true church that is holding to the truth and the right way of serving God, there's going to be that friction that's going to be there. So the real persecution, when it does come, is not just going to be from the world. They'll be right behind it and all for it. But it's going to mainly come from other religious people that are trying to be the churches, but because you stand for something different than what they're teaching. And if anybody has ever known the truth and then they walk away from it, when they get confronted with people that are living the truth, if you've been around them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There is such a conviction that comes upon them and a rejection of those people because of the fact that they stand for what they're supposed to stand for, but they're not. I mean, it's pure hatred. Yeah. Well, that's the persecution that's going to come against the church. That's the persecution that has come against the church throughout all of our history. You go all the way back into the early, we touched on it just a little bit, I think maybe last week's lesson. We talked about Constantine and how he brought the Roman aspect into Christianity and convoluted it with watered it down and everything else because he brought what he had. He wasn't a Christian. He just made a claim, because he made a statement. Well, such and such happens, then I'll become a Christian. Well, it happened. I'm a Christian now. Had no life change, nothing happened. He just said, I'm going to be a Christian. Like if I said I'm going to be whatever. Just because I say it doesn't make it true. Well, then that started bringing in all of this other stuff into the church world, into religion. So those that were still holding to the truth and what was right, then that conflict that I just got to talking about, and that conviction to those that were swinging to the other way when they know where they should be, that brought about all of the persecution that we know that we call the dark ages of the church. That's where it came from. It wasn't from the world. It was from religious leaders that were trying to hold on to a form of religion that they weren't following what was right. And when you do that, the deception and everything else that comes along with that's where that all came from. So as we go through here, hopefully you'll see what he's trying to describe. I think is what I was just stating, that this woman that is mentioned here in verses 6 and 7 has been the religious order, the church, that has persecuted the true church all throughout church history. So she didn't just arrive on the scene here during the tribulation period. That religious aspect it exists right now. And it's going to carry into the tribulation period. And it's going to grow and get worse into the tribulation period. But it exists right now. Any questions on that? I know I said a lot. I hope I explained it well enough. Everybody good? All right. Let's see. The second paragraph, ecclesiastical. That's just another way of saying religious. Ecclesiastical history reflects from the first church period, Ephesus, that the strange deed of this corrupt element, called the deeds of the Nicolaitans, arose from among the clergy, whose main objective was to usurp and hold complete authority over the laity. So these are the upper people within the church that are in position, whatever their titles were at that time, priests, bishops, deacon, whatever. Their goal is just to maintain authority over the people and to dictate their lives. The etymological meaning of the title, okay, again, that's just etymology is the historical study of words. Where did they come from? Where did they get their meaning? So rather than saying that, he uses etymological. It says, meaning of the title, Deeds of the Nicolaitans, gives vent to the notorious nature of this strange sect, being derived from the Greek Nikio, So that's the history of that word Nicolaitans. It comes from its origin. The first part, Nikio, is in the Greek, which means to conquer, and Laos means the people, so literally to conquer the people. So that was the deeds of the Nicolaitans. And who were they? For the most part, religious leaders.
Now, was that religious leaders in the Roman Catholic Church that killed civilians?
No, at that time, that the Roman Catholic Church didn't exist. This is going all the way back to the disciples' time, because in the letters that Jesus wrote to the churches, and I forget which one it was, he made comment there of the Nicolaitans, and he commended that church. He says, because you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which things I also hate. So they were around then. The Roman Catholic Church didn't exist then.
Right.
Let's see, called the deeds of the Nicolaitans arose from among the clergy, whose main objective was to usurp and hold complete authority over the laity. I already read that, sorry.
From the diabolical.
There you go, thank you. From the diabolical deeds in the Ephesus period to becoming a well-established doctrine in Pergamus, this element progressively developed into a world church, corrupt in the worst ethical sense. Now, that could be the development of the Roman Catholic Church. This corrupt system, which God hates, has been protracted in duration and, as an ecclesiastical society, again religious, of conglomerate apostate religions with driving impulsions, will protrude phenomenally forward in the end times. See what I'm saying? So here, what did he just say? This is going to happen all the way to the end.
There you go.
So, come on. I'm all for letting people show you got some education, but come on. The first general persecution resulting in Christian martyrdom began with the 12 disciples of Christ themselves. So, okay, again, you go back to them and their martyrdom. Who did that? Church. So, who are we saying in verses 6 and 7 that is being described as that? This woman.
Being described as the Pharisees, right?
They're part of it. They're part of that, yeah. So this woman has been in existence all throughout church history. Let's see. With the exception of John, the beloved disciple, all of the apostles met violent deaths. Peter, according to Jerome, was crucified at Rome with his head downward at his own request, declaring that he was unworthy to be crucified after the same manner as the Lord. Andrew, the brother of Peter, was crucified on the cross at Edessa. James the Great, the elder brother of John, was beheaded by Herod Agrippa, the newly appointed king of Judea. Philip was scourged, thrown into prison, and afterwards crucified at Heliopolis at Phrygia in AD 54. Bless you. Bartholomew, after having translated the Gospel of Matthew into the language of India, was cruelly beaten and then crucified. Matthew, the tax collector, wrote his Gospel in Hebrew, which was later translated into Greek by James the Less, and was slain with a halberd in the city of Nineveh in AD 60. Thomas, called Didymus, was martyred by being thrust through with a spear. James the Less, at the age of 94, was beaten and stoned by the Jews, and finally had his brains dashed out with a fuller's club. Simon, who was called Zelotes, was crucified in AD 74. So all of these were done by the church. Why? Because they stood and held to the true doctrine that was correct, and when the religious leaders and their agenda that didn't fit into their agenda. You can't accomplish what they were trying to accomplish and hold to the truth. So what do? They come against it.
So they killed all 12. They must have been pretty proud of themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and it's a little bit off topic, but since it's about like one of the main arguments people will say to try to like disprove Christianity as a man-made religion was that the disciples and the early church made all this up, you know, for power or whatever, but they obviously didn't get that. So like for them to go through that and still hold true to their story,
Right.
lets you know they really, you know, if it had all been a lie and you know, they were just making it up. Like you'll make stuff up for power or for
at least
wealth.
one of them would have saved their hide.
Someone would have rolled, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's where he keeps going on through some of the martyrdom here. We'll see. It gets worse. History of the Christian church reveals the Smyrna church period to be a most distressing hour for the Lord's church. Only Satan himself could have invented the most excruciating methods of death imposed upon those Christians who would not recant their position of faith. So, we're not given description as to how it happens, but we know that those that during the tribulation period that will have to give their lives for the faith, that are going to be martyred, it's not going to be any different than this.
You know, and if you look at like Roman history, look at some
Oh, they're
of the
brutal.
torture devices.
They're the most barbaric. Yep.
And it's going to be even worse, so I can't do it.
That's what I'm saying. So
Who knows, it's gonna be the same way.
I'm sure a lot of this stuff will be, they'll just come up with, you know, new gruesome ways. It's not going to be pretty. We may be well assured that only God could have given these saints the courage to stand. Thousands were made human torches and burned at the stake. Many were wrapped in animal skins and thrown to the wild dogs to be devoured. Many of those who chose to stand steadfast for the Lord were skinned alive and salt poured into the raw flesh. Hundreds and thousands were put on racks and stretched until their joints would pull apart. Men, women, and children from Christian families were put into the oval space in the Roman amphitheaters while great crowds cheered as they loosed the hungry lions to devour them. This was their entertainment.
Yes.
The historians tell us that the bravery of the Christians of that day was so outstanding that as the smoke from the parched bodies would descend, the spirit of conviction would fall on the Roman soldiers who had been commissioned to burn the Christians, and they would kneel confessing Jesus as Lord. The idea conveyed by these apostate ecclesiastical leaders, religious leaders, was to bring the old priesthood into the new covenant church. So they were trying to maintain their position of power. You know, the Jewish religious leaders of Jesus' time, Sadducees, the Pharisees, they were the priests in the temple. When anything was of a public dispute concerning someone's doctrine or what they were teaching or preaching, they brought him to the priest. And the priest had the authority under their law, you know, to throw him in jail, order him stoned, you know, that's the kind of power and position they had. Well, they didn't want to let that go. So as the new church, the Christian faith begins to grow, obviously it's in complete opposition to that way of doing things. Now you see where the war comes from.
Yeah, because Jesus come and, you know, said that, you know, the servant's equal to the master, and that would mess up the Pharisees' roots.
They had position, they had power, they had money, all of that stuff. And they don't want to give that up.
Sounds familiar.
Everything that they went through, all these Christians that were martyred. I mean, and now I look and, okay, somebody hurts our feelings, and then...
Yeah, I quit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why you hear me say over and over, you better have it settled in your mind and in your heart now what you believe.
Getting up there and like one of them going, really?
Yeah.
That's the kids' table, man.
You quit because of what?
Right, just like,
I
That's why I tell people at work, I said, how if it's true? You know, I mean, what is really lost or something that if you believe or not believing, like, you know, why would you believe now? Then you'll be sorry the next.
Yes.
That's the ultimate loss.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I know I already read the first part, but just to keep it continuing that second paragraph. The idea conveyed by these apostate ecclesiastical leaders was to bring the old priesthood into the new covenant church and set a holy order of men to usurp authority over the people. Free grace would be taken from the people, and matters of theology would be interpreted by the clergy. Divine scriptures would be received only by traditionalism, a system of philosophy whose adherents depend on tradition as authority in matters of religion. God's inspired word, ecclesiastical governmental structures, and creeds of holy doctrine soon become encumbered by the caprice mind of traditional instructors, having succumbed to this pagan religion from ancient Babylon, insisting these mystical beliefs to be subsidiary and compatible to the Christian faith. So they try to mix all this other stuff in, and that's part of what Constantine did. And that's what Satan still tries to do today. How do you make a truth a lie? just you could have this whole truth, but as soon as you mix in just this little tiny portion of a lie, it's a lie.
Yeah, no, it's a lie. Yeah.
That's what he does. Well, that's the proper word for today is it's called compromise. Well, just give in a little bit here, it'll be all right. It's no big deal. No, that's where we're letting in something that's not right, and it's no longer true anymore. You just destroyed it. Let's see, the next paragraph, the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire, with its far-reaching organization for spiritual control, had delved into temporal matters, demanding membership, financial support, and obedience from all. Secular governments undertook to enforce the church's claim of authority. To attack its dogmas or failure to adhere to them were regarded as crimes against the state. Elected by a group of cardinals, the Pope or head of the church subdivided the Catholic world into patriarchs, provinces, dioceses, and parishes. The apostate woman who had become drunken with the blood of the saints down through the church age suffered great losses of temporal power in both local and state government because of the great Protestant Reformation. Now, as a universal church, she could no longer claim superiority over all kings and potentates. The great religious movements of the 16th century, which led way to the establishment of the Protestant churches, would be accomplished only by the martyrdom of many true saints of God. So, that took place in the 16th century. 1600 years after Christ was here, all of this other stuff reigned, had control. That's a pretty long run.
The Dark Ages.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's been kept that way for that.
What's that?
And it's been kept that way for how long? To have the rule and reign that they have.
Yep. This great Protestant revolt took place in Germany. I was reading that in Scandinavia at the same time. Poland, Dutch, Netherlands, Switzerland, Scotland, England, Bohemia, and parts of Hungary. Justification by simple faith progressed tremendously under such men as Martin Luther, John Calvin, Knox, I haven't heard this one, Zwingli. The enemy of concrete biblical truth resisted the great move of God, as can be seen in the statement of Luther himself. As touching me, since I am sent for, I am resolved and certainly determined to enter Worms, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Yea, although I knew there were as many devils to resist me as there are tiles to cover the houses in Worms. Before the diet of Worms would be dissolved, Martin Luther would be excommunicated from the Holy Roman Catholic Church and be branded as a schismatic. an obstinate and notorious heretic. For many years to follow, the general persecutions in Germany and throughout the entire European continent were occasioned by the doctrine and ministry of one Martin Luther. Those adherents to the Protestant Reformation were inhumanly tortured. Wives and daughters ravished, children run through with the sword, and thousands consumed in the midst of flames. I used to just burn them at the stake. The clergymen and Bible translators brought severe attacks from this apostate system. After the death and burial of John Wycliffe, translator of the Bible into the English language, men dug up his body, burned it publicly, and scattered his ashes over the river Swift. John Huss, converted by the reading of an English translation of the Wycliffe Bible, was sentenced by the Council of Constance to be burned at the stake. A crown of mitre was put on his head with the inscription, "The Great Heretic." As he made his way to the martyr stake, he said, "With joy I wear this crown of shame for the love of him who wore the crown of thorns." The teachings of Huss and Wycliffe offered the foundation for the new theology, which places its emphasis on a personal spiritual regeneration by simple faith in Jesus Christ. We really don't understand what it took to get to us today what we have.
Yeah, we just take it for granted.
We do.
Yeah.
It was just always like that.
Yeah.
People gave their lives
Yeah.
brutally.
Yeah.
Brutally. I mean, took risks.
Yeah.
I read about that one time. And even at the Creation Museum, there's a whole big thing.
Is there on that?
Yeah. But yeah, I read about that.
And then I think, like what Vicky said, some of the excuses that I hear of people giving up, it's like, are you kidding me? Really? That's all it took? Man, Satan's got an easy job.
Very easy.
Seriously.
Very easy reading.
Let's see. Accounts of the sufferings imposed upon the true faith by pagan Rome have continued even until this very present time. This great harlot has become filled and drunken with the blood of saints, beginning from the very cradle of the Christian church. The beastly ruler from the earth is the false prophet of this church system and the religious leader of Antichrist. The woman seen riding the beast represents the self-same apostate religious body and becomes responsible for multitudes from every kindred, tongue, and nation of martyred saints during the future Great Tribulation. So it's the same ones that are going to be responsible for martyring the people that are holding to the faith in the tribulation period is the same ones that have done it throughout history.
The Catholic Church.
The church. It's not just the Catholic Church. It's
It's not just the Roman Catholic Church.
no.
No, all the false church. I mean, all the false
Right.
doctrine.
Any
Like the Mormons and the different.
It's doctrine, yeah.
any of them that have come against what the truth is, it's that you can lump them all into one religious system, and they're all this woman. She represents
All of that.
all of that. Yeah. So predominantly, yes, it's been the Roman Catholic Church throughout history. Yeah. This long, is that where I'm at? This long and illustrious ecclesiastical system consummates in destruction, being made desolate by the 10 kingdoms of revived Rome as the Antichrist gains complete control over them. So he's going to use that religious system for his benefit, but his goal is for Satan to be worshipped. So once he gains that following and authority that he's looking for from the religious groups, then that very woman, the religious people that have come against, what's that, poetic justice? How do they say it? He's going to turn on them and destroy them. We're going to wipe them out. Let's see. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Satan will have no further need of this woman or the system she represents, for the man of sin becomes the object of worship and will demand total allegiance from all people.
So he builds her up and then knocks her down.
Yep. Yep. You uses her for all she's worth, and
My friend.
yeah, then kicks her to the curb, dead. The 10 horns represent the same kingdoms which were spoken of by Daniel the prophet. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. John in the 13th division speaks of the beast which is seen coming up out of the sea. 10 crowns are seen on the horns, which represent the power of dominion of each sovereign. That is, the individual king or kingdom. A most significant factor is that these horns and crowns are fully connected to the beast. They are kingdoms of the old Roman Empire, which will give their full support and allegiance to the erecting of the beast empire. It was also revealed to Daniel that 3 of the 10 kingdoms would be overthrown by the little horn. The little horn of Daniel and the apocalyptic beast are one and self-same character. The Antichrist of Bible prophecy. Many have contended that this disrupting of the 3 kingdoms will be accomplished by the exercise of eloquent speaking. For this deceptive one, at his first appearance, will be that of a silver-tongued orator. It is more probable, however, that war will be the means employed to overcome those nations who oppose the objectives and goals of this ambitious one. I believe that completely. He'll be a smooth talker in the beginning, but once he gets what he wants and he has the backing of the world's armies and powers and whatever, then he's going to do what Satan always does. He ain't going to play around. He's going to force it. At any rate, the devouring will be of such overwhelming magnitude that the remaining kingdoms will become subjected by submitting to him without further delay. The 7 heads set forth the entire course of onward movement, encompassing the installation and completion of the time of the Gentiles. Now, that's that final week of years, the 7 years of the tribulation. They began their bondage down in the land of Egypt and will consummate with the beast empire during the Great Tribulation. Satan has managed to control these world kingdoms as a means of bringing violent percussion upon the Israelite nation. The world kingdoms are 7, which are respectively represented by the 7 heads on the beast. They are Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and revived Rome. That last one is yet to come. The Antichrist will become the leader of the 7th. That is, the 10 horns or kingdoms which have received no kingdom as yet, but are destined to receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast.
So the revived Rome said it's yet to come, meaning
That kingdom, that
so he
government.
knew it.
What's that?
A new one.
Yes, it'll be one that will be established during the tribulation period.
Okay.
So the revived Rome will come into existence.
Smaller than a new one.
Yeah, there was the Roman Empire that we know
Yeah,
of,
okay.
and that's going to be revived
Right.
during the tribulation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that one is yet to come. Any other questions? I know, like I said, there was a lot there, and tried to break down some of his vocabulary, but hopefully we did that. Let's see. None of these in this chapter are short, are they? Yeah, I don't have time to get through the next one. We'll stop there. So next time, the beast from the bottomless pit. It gets worse and worse.
Yep.
Say, Pastor how easy people give up now or quit,
Yep.
you know, for really no reason.
No.
You know, when we get to that place, well, you know, I pray we don't get to that place where Jesus comes to fix us home first. But we know that there's going to be trials and tribulations coming.
Oh, yeah.
And we see what's happening in our world. You know, how much of the church as we know it today, you know, are just going to give up.
Oh,
A
yeah.
whole lot. And that's part of even, you know, we were warned, the word tells us that's going to be part of the signs of entering into that time. A great falling away like we've never seen before. I've witnessed it.
Yeah.
You know, what the church used to be in my lifetime and what it is today, and the people that, you know, church houses used to be full.
Yeah.
And now the ball fields, if you think about it, most games are on Sunday and Wednesday. Why?
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence.
You know,
It's one time a week. Most churches are.
other than the mega churches, but for regular Bible teaching, truth believing churches, we're running good in terms of how many people that we have that you know, are consistently coming here. You know, you think, you know, we're small. That's normal. You know, a lot of, like I said, the churches that the places where they're still adhering to what's right and teaching what's right, they just don't have the people there. It doesn't exist.
Satan's making it easier not to follow God.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's easier. If you don't, you know, we have to deal with stuff because Satan is attacking God's people. You know, because we look around at people out in the world. How come they ain't dealing with what I'm dealing with? You know, how come they're this? How come? And it's harder. It's harder. You're right. We don't know the beginning of it yet. How hard it's going to be a true Christian.
And you know, the church is going to be raptured out before we're in the official tribulation period.
Yeah.
You know, I've said it all along, and I'm being repetitive, but that enters into a new dispensation. That is the judgment dispensation. Well, I'm saved. I'm saved from God's judgment. If you're saved, that's what you're saved from. So that's how do I know I'm not going to be here? Because I'm not going to be judged for sin. I'm saved from sin. But just from what we are already seeing, you know, when we talk about it all the time, how fast, I mean, just in the last 5 years, and that's nothing. How things have changed in the world around us and in our society, and what's acceptable and what people are doing. And I mean, just in 5 years. Forget going back to when we were kids. You know, there's no whatever.
Just only this year, it's so many like riots there and vandalizing there, vandalizing here. You know, it's
just everything.
Yeah, it's everything. It's
And you're
just
weird if you don't.
So the point is, if it progresses that fast of what we've already seen, and we know how sin is, once it gets rolling, the changes happen quicker and quicker and quicker. Mm-hmm. So if what we've seen take place in the last 5 years, what's the next 5 years going to do? It's going to be happening so fast and things are going to change so drastically that, you know, we're going to be like, you know, what happened? You know, so what are we going to see? What are we going to live through and experience before we're raptured out? See, that has nothing to do with God's judgment.
But what's going on, we don't know nothing about. There's so many things we don't know what's going on.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
sure, that's
And
true.
It's already,
Yeah.
progress. more than we're
But,
expecting.
but even the things that we see and experience and know, you know, how quickly and we've gotten to where we are,
That's amazing.
it is. It's unbelievable. So with that progressing forward, well, how much is going to take place before we are raptured out? I don't know, obviously. None of us do. So I'm saying, because I think too often people in the church say, well, we're going to be raptured before we're faced with any of that. I'm not telling anybody that. You know, I stand firm because I believe God's word that we're going to be raptured before the things that are happening as a result of God pouring out judgment on sin. I know we're going to be raptured out before that. But what happens in this world just as a natural progression of sin in the world, no telling what we're going to have to face.
The deterioration of our government, to me, is a major indicator.
Oh, jeez.
You know,
it's always been bad, but
and you've seen this, but now it's like
they're not hiding it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, look at the churches. I mean, look at the churches. I mean, it's so easy just to
I try not to.
Constantine and say, hey, I'm a Christian now. And
Yeah.
the compromises, and then how many people just, they don't see it, you know, they're still kind of being led by the ones in leadership, as far as it'll come through us. Because nobody checks out for themselves.
And what they don't realize is what we were just talking about, that woman, they're part of that.
And how sad is that?
Exactly.
I don't tell you that it's going to be easy, but some churches make it so easy. Bible says the road is narrow.
Yeah.
That means there's a standard and a way you have to walk.
Yep. Hold on, church. It's all like I can tell you, be ready. Don't get lax in whatever. But hold to it.
When I realized that the New Testament was wrote for us, the believers, I mean, it kind of, because they're talking about, no, they're not. Sinners don't call Jesus Lord. They don't, they never stood to inherit the kingdom anyway. So, therefore, who is he talking to?
Yep. Announcements? Deb's not in here. Anybody